Hello, hello. Hello, hello. There's like a weird feedback loop when you do that, when you have the cell phone on at the same time. So who are you texting over there, Kevin?
Cameron.
Cameron, what's he texting about?
Nothing.
Nothing?
I'm texting, so.
You're texting. What are you texting?
Nothing.
What are you texting? What are you saying? You guys on the chat? What are you guys looking at?
We're talking about meditation.
Are you talking about your third eye?
Yeah.
I don't think, is it polite to talk about somebody's third eye in public? I think
Depends
that's
on
like
what you're
private,
I've only told people I like, so.
about your third eye.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird talking about it.
Why?
Because people.
It's kind of culty.
It sounds crazy. I feel like I sound crazy when I talk about it.
Why?
Because it's a crazy thing. People, unless you've like experienced it, it's not. I don't know. Like, because for a while I took like meditation classes for like 2 years, and I always just kind of pretended. And then one day I sat down and like actually tried, and it worked. But it took time. Like the week I had off, I did like.
Don't go to church anytime, okay?
Well,
you might start to like it.
No, that's the thing. Like I now kind of understand like why might a person go to church.
Oh yeah,
like,
you didn't understand it before?
Well, if you could have an experience like this, then like that makes sense. Like yeah, that sounds great, you know. But like I had never had that experience, so then I was just like, I have a week, I can dedicate like 3 or 4 hours to like trying this out. And if something happens, great. If not, you know, I had a week and I just got to sit by myself and.
It's amazing what you can accomplish.
With a week off.
When you have a whole week and nothing to do with your time,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I had stuff.
Yeah, but you didn't do that, did you? You were like, oh, let me meditate for
like,
8 hours a day.
It was like Christmas, so yeah, like I don't have a family to take care of, so I fed my cat and I had all the things I had to do done that day, so it was great. So I started with sanding, and so I was sanding a ball of wood as a Christmas present for my family. And so I was like sanding for 3 hours, just trying to focus on the object, and then I did like sitting meditation, like 3 20-minute sessions, and then I would take like breaks in between to play music and like, just kind of chill, and then more sitting meditation, and stuff was happening for that first day, and it was good. So I did that for a couple more days. And just like trying to enjoy the process, like not trying to expect anything, because I didn't expect anything to happen.
Yeah, you did, or else you wouldn't have been doing it.
No, but
you must have expected
like,
something.
Like I thought it might, but I didn't have any expectations to think about, right? So it was like I didn't have these thoughts blocking my way to getting relaxed, which was nice. Because now when I meditate, now I like think about the past times I've meditated and what happened, and it takes like twice as long to do anything because. You know, I just like am comparing the present moment to the past. It was really obnoxious. But anyway, so I like didn't actually expect things to work, and I think that helped because I was just like, I just kept relaxing more and more. And then I started working with a mirror and just doing focus drills.
Is it Bloody Mary?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking you were doing in there originally.
No, but what's really...
You were like, it's dark and
I don't know.
It has a mirror. I was like, dude.
No, if you're
trying to have like a seance in there? Count me out. I'm out of here. I'm scared of that stuff.
Meditating with mirrors is weird. Like, I did it last night after I got home from work. I took care of all my like chore stuff, and then for like 3 hours, I like sat. And for my last thing, I like turned the lights off, candle on, mirror in front of me, and it's like this big mirror, and I'm like just sitting there. And if you wait and relax long enough, like
Bloody Mary comes?
Well, you start to mildly hallucinate.
Yeah!
And it's weird. It's weird.
Why are you doing that?
Because I've never done it, and it was interesting. Well, what's nice about the mirror is it's just something to look at, and you know that the thing that you're looking at isn't a real thing, right? So you can kind of, I think for me, more easily dissociate.
But what are you looking at when you wait? So if you're in a dark room looking at a mirror, is it totally dark, or is it just kind of dark?
Well,
and you're looking at yourself, right?
Yeah, when I started, it was I didn't do it in the dark because I thought it was weird. And just like focusing on just relaxing the eyes and just being able to play with the image in my mind. Like look at it and not think about it. Because the hardest thing is like looking at things and not having thoughts about them. But what's nice about like the mirror is like you can tell yourself that it's not real because you know it's just an image.
Or is it? Or is it?
Sure.
What is there other than just an image?
Well, if you're...
Isn't everything just an image?
What was that Jaden Smith quote? How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real?
Is that really? I don't know anything about Jaden Smith, but it sounds about right.
I thought about that for a while and just like I meditated and my brain exploded into transcendental. No. And yeah, just like, well, because you gave me the idea too. You were talking about how you used to get ocular migraines after shooting, and you were, yeah, you were telling about shooting, and you were like, you get headaches looking down your sight, where you would focus with your right eye, and then your left eye would stay like in the peripheral mode, right? And what happens is, as both eyes
Did
are
I say
working,
that? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I've ever thought about getting migraines.
You said that your
I
eyes
do
would
use
start
double. I use both eyes open.
Yeah, and you said that you started getting like.
Oh, maybe I might get flashes. Yeah, from
Right,
that.
and so I was like, okay, like that's cool, and that feeling in your head, I think, is like, anyway. So my idea was, I was looking in the mirror, and just trying to focus on both images that my eyes were generating, like not by looking at them, but just like having them in my mind and relaxing, and then stuff started happening, and then as I got more and more relaxed, it takes a long time, like more time than I probably would have.
You gotta be really patient.
Yeah.
But the payoff is worth it?
Yeah. My depression isn't as bad as it has been. And what else? Things, I've been like noticing things more, like just awareness in general about like how stuff looks. But I'm also more distracted easily, like, or more easily distracted. Where like I'm driving and I see a shiny neon sign, I'm like looking at it, where before I would just like ignore everything and just drive. It was really weird.
I remember one time I went to do paintball, right? And you know, in paintball you have to develop kind of a paranoid attitude because you just don't know. And now I guess I don't know paintball. People still play paintball? Or is it all airsoft now? I think airsoft actually looks cooler.
Paintball is usually more for kids.
Is it?
But
well, we didn't really have airsoft when I was doing paintball. It was just paintballs. Or if they did have airsoft, I didn't know about it. I never heard of airsoft until recently.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it.
It looks awesome. I was watching some airsoft videos the other day. It looks
cool.
If I could get away and go play airsoft for a day, I would do it for sure. But anyway, you know, you get this. I developed this, you know, playing paintball like this because it was out in the woods. It wasn't like one of these small little spaces where people are just only shooting you. It was more like you're kind of stalking, and people are stalking you. And you got the snipers, and you got like.
Is this why you're like a?
And then after I do that, like I come home and I'm like, everything I'm looking at is like, can someone shoot me through this like little opening? You know, that's all I think about.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of. I'm not sure if that's really apropos of what you're saying, but it's like.
I think that's the idea. Like
you just. I
I
was so focused on not being shot.
Yeah.
That at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I got shot eventually, but that and I picked off a bunch of people. I had a good time. I love doing that stuff. And but you just don't leave it at the like this. It's very similar thing when you go ice skating or rollerblading. You have a feel like you've done it for a while, and then when you take off the stuff, then you go like walk around, and it feels different. Yeah. It's a different experience.
It's also like that reminds me of like
different types of awareness.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh yeah,
right? Like,
yeah, sure.
I think the difference being like you were at a place that you wanted to be, and you were having a good time, versus like that feeling of paranoia where you like can't escape, and then it lingers with you longer than you want it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like.
I mean, if you suffer that trauma, and you don't really even know, or you're not equipped to deal with it. Yeah. It spirals out of control.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, for sure.
So yeah.
I was actually just reading about Chris Kyle.
Which one is he?
He was basically like the top Navy SEAL sniper.
Yeah, the sniper guy.
I think he was the inspiration for that.
The movie.
That movie
with the fake baby.
Yeah. I never watched that movie, but he was helping somebody. He was doing this thing for like soldiers with PTSD, and he was out with, I don't know what service that guy was in, but he's just a regular soldier that was out and had some serious issues. Takes him out shooting, and the dude winds up shooting him in the back, kills him. I mean, craziness, right? I mean, but anyway, I think Chris Kyle's pretty awesome.
What I've noticed,
I was looking at his guns.
as I've been meditating and as I've been doing jiu-jitsu, like they're very similar states. Like when I get done doing jiu-jitsu, it feels like I'm an hour into meditating.
Yeah.
And that's nice. That's really nice. Because I always told people that like, yeah, I do jiu-jitsu and meditate.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of an excuse
It's
to
totally
not
like
have to meditate.
it's like jiu-jitsu is once you get past the initial feelings of like abject terror and helplessness.
Yeah.
You know, and not everyone has that, but once you get past that kind of threshold, and even if you're just getting your ass beat, you are very centered in the moment, almost always. Like you're not really thinking about anything else other than
That first part is very hard to get past, though. That like, because you still are like very like you're centered and you're aware when jiu-jitsu is happening, especially when you don't know what you're doing or you don't have any expectations of what's happening. So like for the first 3 or so months, it's just you fully aware of you getting your ass beat. Like there's no like, oh, I'm gonna try a thing, I'm gonna do a thing. It's just I'm gonna get murdered a lot and I'm gonna experience every little bit of it because my brain's gonna be all the way on when it's happening.
Well, I mean, the thing is though, is like it's interesting because you know, at some point you just kind of like you get a confidence from it, right? Like, okay, I've tapped every way that you can tap, or pretty much every way you can tap. So it's not going to get any worse.
Yeah.
You know?
You're not gonna surprise me.
You know? So.
And then
I mean,
that's
there
when
are a lot of different ways to do things, but I mean, at the end of the day, your arm's going straight, or it's getting current.
But that's when it starts. Like when I started doing good jiu-jitsu, what I thought was like good jiu-jitsu, it was that moment where, you know, I just didn't have those expectations, and I was just like in the moment, but not, you know, creating or like trying to force anything to happen, just like reacting, and like I knew what I wanted to do, but it wasn't like I'm gonna do this. It was very much like, you know, very flowy, and that takes. It's a weird step getting from white belt to blue belt because you have to go into this space, this headspace. It's very like technical and concrete, and that's like the best way to survive a blue belt is by thinking through problems through what you've learned at white belt.
This is how you think as a white belt and a blue belt. This is the simplest way. You need to choke more fools than choke you.
No, but there's like,
I'm just kidding.
but a blue belt, it's like what's nice about blue belt is you can get to places where, especially like when you're rolling with white belts, and they can cause problems that you don't immediately know how to solve, but you're able to use the experiences that you've had to like work your way through them. It's still not like fully a flow state, but like you're able to like apply knowledge, and that's a really good strong step. Like that's the first step. It's not like, yeah, it's the first step, and then once you're able to like find things that work, eventually, as you keep doing them, you don't have to think about them anymore, and that's
right.
like that's what I think is
That's
good
right.
jiu-jitsu. And like that's the whole point of
You're just reacting.
yeah, that's why we.
Thinking about what kind of burrito you're gonna get for dinner.
No, it's like not even thinking
We're
about that.
trying
It's
not
like,
to throw up. You know, like when I first started, there was a lot of like, okay, if I could just get through this and not throw up, I'll be good.
yeah, I had a lot of anxiety when I started.
Oh yeah,
Like,
for
just-
sure.
You know, you don't know who you're rolling with. You haven't been there. You're a new guy. I don't think I would have been able to stick with jiu-jitsu had my sister not been the one to get me started.
Is that right? You're like, I can't quit before my sister quits.
No, it's just like she was there, and I knew that there was at least one person there who didn't hate me.
Or you at least you thought.
Not outwardly. No, I'm just kidding. But
She didn't say that she hated you at least.
but
Totally different subject. Can I change the subject for a quick second?
sure, yeah.
Andre Galvella just came out with his new introduction to Jiu-Jitsu.
What was that?
It's on BJJ Fanatics.
It was just like a 101 course.
There's a lot of self-defense on that. I mean, from the clips that they show, it's like straight up stuff. Which, I mean, if you're Andre Galvao, I don't know anybody in their right mind who would like attack Andre. If you just saw Andre Galvao on the street, he'd probably be the last guy that wouldn't make it. I mean, even if you didn't know anything, you'd be like, I'm not messing with that dude.
Yeah, I mean, he's built like a refrigerator.
I mean, like a really jacked refrigerator. Like there are guys that I see on the street who are like, they're built like fridges, but they're kind of round and soft, and you can at least have the illusion or the what's the word? The misperception that they're not a lot stronger than you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh, that guy's just fat. No, I mean, he's built like
he's fat and strong.
He's probably pretty damn strong. That's the other thing that's cool about jiu-jitsu is you can roll with different people with different body types and shapes and sizes, and you can get a new appreciation for like, you know, the different kind of strength and weight that different body types has. Because I think we have this idea of, you know, there's only one kind of athletic body type, but that is like, you know, like it's kind of the fitness model body type. But if you actually look at like, and some athletes, some professional athletes actually do look like that, right? But there are a lot of very, you know, like offensive linemen in the NFL. Like those guys, if you saw them on the street, they'd be a big dude, but you wouldn't be like, oh, that guy probably runs really fast.
I feel like nowadays, like even the NFL, like those guys are like just big and strong.
Well,
like,
no, the old linemen, they're like, you know, see, like what I'm saying is like, look, yeah, they are big, they are crazy big and strong, but they're kind of like, I won't make any comparisons like that, but you know, you have like the defensive ends who are like 6'8" and just jacked, you know, just and you know, the linebackers who are a little bit shorter usually, defensive backfield, they're all crazy fit. But then like the offensive and defensive linemen, they don't look like, I mean, they're big. Yeah. So you're like, I'll just run away from that guy. No.
But their job isn't to run, it's just to
their job is to run really fast and to knock over really big men while they go and try to sack the other really tall dude who has the ball.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like these guys are, when you think about like what their job is, the idea that you would be able to outrun them, like maybe in a marathon, or that you'd be able to outquick them.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I played basketball one time. Penn State offensive line came to one of the basketball courts, like outdoor basketball courts. Just for fun, words, not the whole line, but like a bunch of them. Yeah. And we all thought we were gonna like house them, and they put a hurting on us without even trying. And they were just like throwing alley-oops to each other and stuff. Now these aren't like NFL quality linemen, right? They're not like all 350 pounds, but they were big boys. And we thought, oh yeah, well, I'll quit these guys, you know. Yeah. They were like blocking shots, they could all dunk. I mean, they were just
outworked.
I mean, amazing. So, but jiu-jitsu lets you, like, if you've ever wondered, like, I wonder what it's like to wrestle with a guy like that. Jiu-jitsu, well, you can have that experience.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, what's it like to have somebody who's 350 pounds? Okay, you know, that can be arranged.
Get in there, champ.
Good luck. Hope your life insurance is paid off.
Why do you think Galvao is releasing a self-defense series thing? Or,
I think everybody now is releasing their system. I think it's the new hotness because it makes money, right? I mean, he deserves to have a big audience. I'm sure there's a lot of people who look up to him and deservedly so, right?
Mm-hmm. He's definitely earned it.
I mean, there's no question. I mean, you're going to learn some good jiu-jitsu if you watch Andre Galvao. But I think there's
I learned good self-defense.
The best that Brazilian jiu-jitsu has to offer.
I mean, do you think, like, I don't know, perhaps Galvao has spent an extensive amount of time thinking about self-defense.
He looked pretty good. I mean,
probably more than I do.
You know, I will say this about this subject, and regardless of whether you think it is, you know, in our society where people have knives and guns, and you know, it's in many places it's not uncommon to see, you know, to have one, you know, in your presence, except in California, where it's, I think, more, you know, like if you're in Florida or Texas, you're probably there are guns everywhere. It's in the, you know, but gunpowder's in the water. But I think that one of the, at least from the Brazilian, like when judo went to Brazil, I think self-defense was a big part of the fundamental of, like the fundamental value or purpose of jiu-jitsu at a certain time. You know, it's for fighting, not necessarily for like
That's the thing. It's
self-defense.
It's not self-defense.
But,
it's like
but
they have a
for
fight culture.
more, but you know, they would do some, you know, they would fight on the street too. They would use this stuff on the street.
Yeah.
And there is self-defense.
But
There's a self-defense kata in
That's
judo.
not self-defense though. That's
Well, it depends on what you're.
That's mutual unarmed combat.
It depends on what you're. But what I'm saying is, you can have mutual unarmed combat in the street with no rules, or you can have, or maybe somebody surprises you
Yeah.
to start the match, you know,
Yeah.
or you could have, you know, a sanctioned match with the rules and time and,
Yeah.
you know, a referee. But I do think that it's in, I mean, if you know, like the first stuff, and maybe, you know, like it's tough to piece out, let me just finish this thought. It's tough to piece out how much of that was propaganda and how much of it was real. Because I don't know, I mean, I wasn't in Brazil in 1950.
You know what I see, or I was seeing a lot on the internet? Brazilian self-defense videos. None of them, maybe no, like one or two, jiu-jitsu. The rest are all undercover cops. All undercover cops. There's a guy.
I would listen to an undercover cop if you want to tell me how to defend myself. Yeah.
They pull a gun, they shoot the guy, like self-defense. And that's what they do in Brazil. Like that's the way.
Well, look, if you have access to a weapon and you are in a legit self-defense scenario, well, you should use your weapon. That is a much more efficient way to defend yourself in a real situation. The only problem with that is that there's no scaling, or very little scaling of the force, right? I mean, I can't like pull the trigger a little lighter, and you know you're not going to be hurt as badly, right? If I brandish the weapon, that automatically escalates the situation, and that can get you in trouble if you do it in the wrong place. And then the other thing is once I pull the trigger, assuming I pull the trigger, because there's a lot of people who can't actually, either they fumble it or they don't know what they're doing, their safety's on, they forget that you know what I mean? There's a whole, they didn't put a round in the chamber, you know, like, whatever it is, or they freeze in the moment, and then they don't actually get a round off, you know? Or you get a round off and you kill somebody.
Yeah.
Or worse, you don't kill them and then they sue you.
That's why in China, if you hit a person, you usually get hit twice. Or if you get hit, you'll get hit again until you die. Because they'll sue you. Like, anyway, sorry.
They sue you in China?
Oh,
Is there a lot of lawsuits in China?
Well, I from what I've heard, and this is what I learned when I was living in China, they, you know, if you get hit, or if you hit a person, right, the chance that they sue you for damages is very high.
Really?
However, if you hit and kill someone, the odds of you getting into trouble are, or at least like, if you weigh out the consequences, the negative ones that you will experience are less if that person is dead.
Yeah.
Because if it was an accident, it was an accident. A lot of
And
people
they can't say anything different.
They can't say anything, and a lot of people get hit by cars in China. Like, it's a.
Oh, I see. But you're hitting someone like you hit them with your car.
Like you hit them.
Not if you like punch them in the face.
No, you hit them with
Oh,
the
I
car,
see.
and like they're like.
And you should run them over.
Yeah, you run them over again, and then you take off. Because like that's the way you're not gonna get bankrupt.
It reminds me of some advice that a certain New York City police detective once gave me, and I asked him, you know, if you have a gun in your home, which is pretty much illegal in New York, at least what it was when I was there, and someone breaks into your house and you kill them or you shoot them, you know, will you get prosecuted for, you know, whatever?
Yeah.
And he's like, you'll probably get a weapons possession charge, right? Because you shouldn't have the gun.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, you know, you should make sure that you kill the person.
Yeah.
I mean, he was kind of being serious. He's like, you know, you're probably going to get sued if you just, because I think that's what happened to Bernie Getz. Bernie Getz was the guy who, I think he got mugged on a subway one day, and so then he started carrying a weapon, and then 4 kids tried to mug him, and then he shot them all. And you know, there was a question of whether, and he left. I think he killed one, left one paralyzed, and maybe did some other things. But there was a question of whether they had actually tried to mug him, or if he had just opened fire. I don't know the whole story. All I know is I know Bernie Getz. He was famous when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But you know, as you can imagine, it's a polarizing story. But it's, you know, you go to, I mean, he went to jail for weapons possession. I think he got acquitted for the, you know, whatever the assault charges were. But I think he got sued civilly.
Ugh.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. As you can see, I don't know enough about the case to say, whether he was justified or not. But either way, he wound up going to prison and paying a lot of money. So that's a high price, even if it was justified.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying factually.
Oh, that's so tricky. I don't know.
Yeah, everyone doesn't. Nobody. People rarely think about like kind of the downstream effects of these situations. Like that kid who in Kenosha, who shot, he killed 2 people.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't have been there, and he was underage, and he shouldn't have had a gun. Whether or not it was self-defense, and I don't think it was, but even if it was, he still winds up going to prison. He's in jail. I think he got out, but he was in jail for a couple months, and then he got bailed out.
He got bailed.
And then now he's going to be on trial. Like the kid's like 17 or something. I don't know.
It's weird. Makes you wonder, like, what's the steps preceding that? Like, what gets a kid up to, I'm gonna go get an assault rifle. Oh, I'm gonna drive over here to this place. I'm gonna walk around with this assault rifle.
I think
I don't know
if you're like a 17 or an 18-year-old, I mean, look, it's not just 17-year-old kids, 18-year-old kids. Automatic or semi-automatic weapons are cool, right?
Yeah.
Like boys want to play with them.
Yeah.
And that's boys of all ages, not just the 17-year-olds, that's 50-year-olds. I mean, it's true. They're awesome, but, there's a reason you don't give things to kids, dangerous things to kids. And then the other thing is he probably thought it was just gonna be cool. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna get my friend's rifle, and I'm gonna go out, and I'm gonna protect the community. And I'm gonna be on patrol with my boys. A bunch of older guys who, he probably looked up to, and emulated, and wanted to be like. And they probably loved having, just like we love having, the teenage kids that come in and they want to train and get good at jiu-jitsu, and we love to train them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't give them AR-15s or any other firearm. But, I totally get that attraction for a 17 or 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Hey, I could get my hands on a rifle and go and like walk around on the street with it? Are you kidding me? Like America. It's crazy. That's just crazy. I think it's crazy that people are out there like running around with like fully loaded ARs just running down the street.
Well, I think it's weird that like this kid like internalizes the idea of some sort of enemy out there that he needs to go around protecting society from with a gun. And like, I doubt that he had any personal reason to be there other than he wanted to be there.
He wanted to be, I think it was, I think the kid wanted to be either a soldier and or a cop.
But soldiers and cops don't do that. So.
Well, but here's the thing, right? Like he's in a group with a bunch of other guys, and he probably looks up to them, right? And he wants to tag along and be part of that group.
Yeah.
I totally get that. And they're probably amused by that, right? Like, oh yeah. And I'm sure nobody thought that they were actually, that he was gonna get separated or, because if he had just stayed with the group, he probably would have been okay.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he gets separated, and now he's essentially defenseless unless he uses his weapon. Because there's a bunch of people who are fed up with this shit.
Yep.
Because you talk a big game when there's all your 10 of your friends with ARs with you. So you talk big, and then if you get separated, now you're gonna have to use that AR to get your ass beat hard, right? Because it's people remember.
Bad idea. Oof. Oof.
Life comes at you fast.
Well, faster if you're running towards it with a gun.
It's crazy. It's a crazy thing, but.
Oh, did you hear about the Capitol storming?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? Like, a bunch of people going and doing stuff. None of them belong in the White House. You don't have a business there.
Capitol building.
Oh, Capitol building.
I don't belong in the White House either.
But yeah, like, you know, what are you doing there? You have business to do? You're gonna fax some papers? You're gonna fix some things?
I think there are a group of people, and I don't think it's just the MAGA crowd, although it's a large part of them. Because, you know, you have the Antifa.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the same, but, you know, I don't think they're equivalent, but I think you have a group of people who don't respect, like, reality. In the sense that, you know, you have people who are like, they're convinced that there's a conspiracy, and then they feel justified, especially in a group, to take action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I really truly believe, if I'm convinced that there's some terrible crime being committed in the space next door to us,
Yeah.
then I may break down those doors to go to somebody's rescue.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not being the good guy. And if I don't find anything untoward over next door, but there's somebody sitting there, but I still have this delusion, I might even just torture that person to get the information, like where are you hiding, you know?
Didn't that happen to someone?
I mean, I'm just making that up, but you know, I think that's what it is. I think you have this sort of mob mentality. When you have 10,000 people, I don't think you don't feel like there's a sense of individual responsibility.
Well, that's the whole point of the mob.
Yes. Well, so the funny thing is that the internet remembers, right? So all the videos and the pictures and people. There was one guy who was like a lawyer. There were a bunch of lawyers in that crowd. There was one guy who was a lawyer, and he takes a selfie in the middle of the riot because he just got tear gassed.
Yeah.
And did you see this? He takes his selfie and he's like, I just got tear gassed. That's what he puts on his like Instagram or something like that.
Yeah.
So then that, of course, you know, it's like all his work friends and whatever are like, what? This guy's, and so he gets fired. And he's probably gonna get disbarred, and he's probably gonna get prosecuted, he's probably gonna go to jail, because he's an idiot. But like I don't know this guy, just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean you're smart, because just look at me, but he obviously was not thinking, right? He just, like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Why?
Because it's kind of like, you know, the guys that go to the rob a house and then they fall asleep on your couch. it's like that level of incompetence and stupidity.
Yeah.
You know, and like they fall asleep and like the owner comes back like 6 hours later and dude is like asleep with the carton of milk open and, you know, was drinking your wine or whatever.
I appreciate a person who owns up to their actions. Like
No. This was not him like, oh, no. Yeah, you're right. He was kind of bragging.
Yeah.
He was like, look at me, I'm in the middle. Maybe he was seeking attention. You know, maybe. But let's just say this, right? Like, there are people who have principles, and like it's like what do they call it? You know, civil disobedience, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, and it's, you know, in the civil rights movement, people would be civilly disobedient. The whole point was to get arrested. Yeah. It was not to cause mayhem and hurt people, right? Yeah. Eventually, you know, some of that movement morphed into like the Black Panthers and the BLA, and the Weathermen, and things got out of hand. But you know, when you talk about like Martin Luther King and the early civil rights movement, the point was to go and break the laws that you believed were unjust, and to go to prison for them. In fact, at some point, they kept busing so many people because the idea was we're going to gum up the entire criminal justice system because they're going to run out of jail cells for us. Yeah. Right? We need more people. Come and get arrested so that we can. And they would sing songs in the prison, and like it was like a party in the prison or the jail. And so the whole point, if that's what you're doing, is they're making a mockery, or they're showing the injustice of the laws by breaking those laws, only those laws, as peacefully as possible, and going to jail for it. That's like living or owning it, right? Like running around the Capitol building and like just like knocking stuff over, and like some people died, and you know, like that is just like a riot. There's no principle to that, right?
Yeah, but like with the principle version, like the result, I guess, like it had a, you know.
And then I run away and I don't own up to it.
Well, but they also like shot MLK and they started building more prisons, so it's.
Yeah, well, one could say, well, you know, had mixed results, but what I'm saying is just in response to the idea of like this guy's owning up to his like I'm a patriot. You know, like I could certainly see somebody thinking that they were a patriot. You know, I'm a patriot. I'll die for the cause, whatever.
Because wasn't that like a founding idea where like if you think that a government is tyrannical over you, like
give me freedom or give me death.
Like, it is not just like it's not.
Death
that
it
you,
is.
It's not that you can rebel. It's that it is your moral obligation to do so. Like if you legitimately think that your rights have been infringed upon, not like your natural rights, your God-given rights, as people put it, you know, then it's your responsibility to say like no.
I mean, I think I don't know enough about the justifications for rebellion. I'm sure it goes something along those lines of like the tyranny is so
wasn't that like
burdensome that I can no longer stand.
That was in the Declaration of Independence, right? Like,
well, it doesn't say. It lays out there.
Because we have self-evident truths, life, liberty, happiness.
It's not quite what you like. It's not doing the analytical thing that I'm talking about, right? Which is like laying out everything. They just kind of make a bunch of assumptions.
Yes. Well,
and proceed from the assumptions.
That's the problem.
There's no show your homework. It's just basically
the beginning of it is we hold these truths to be self-evident.
Yes.
So it's like, don't ask us any more questions about these truths. They're self-evident. We're gonna move on.
Yes.
And
they've never been self-evident. If you actually go and look at those, it's never
like,
the whole course of humanity. They are definitely not self-evident. They are less than evident.
But if you're trying to write or start a rebellion, you can't just like pause and start like thinking about this one existential problem.
No, but I think move along. Look. I mean, I guess you could come at it from different ways, right? Like, there's an idea of self-defense. Like, you are like attacking me, like physically. I'm in fear of my life, and then the person's going to fight back, right? And people just say that's a natural thing. So it was a natural response.
I can't even help if I do that in some cases. Like, if you attack me, like
you're going to meet some degree of force with force, right? So there's that, but then there's also sort of the more, well, you've overtaxed me. It's so onerous. Therefore, I'm going to shoot you. And those types of things are a little more.
That's more of like you bring in like a lawyer, right? Where you.
No, but that was like a big part of like why the comments were like no taxation without representation,
well,
right?
Didn't they send Franklin over there to help deal with things, and then they were like, nah. And then then
like get back to work and send us our money.
Because Franklin, I think it was Franklin, he was like really pro-British, and then he went over there and they like didn't, I guess, treat him the way he wanted to be treated, whatever.
Right.
And so he goes back and he's like, all right, like let's do this.
I mean, I don't know that story of Ben Franklin, but it wouldn't surprise me if it is true that the king was like whatever.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
But like there was
Franklin, your funny glasses and your coat.
There was an attempted diplomacy at first, like.
I think they definitely was. This was not just one thing that happened. It was like over the course. It was like a whiskey tax. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Like same thing. If you have a person encroaching into your personal space, the correct response isn't punch them in the face. It's create more personal space or open a line of communication. Like, hey, you're in this.
Shots fired.
Yeah, like if you stay in here, I will feel like I have to do something.
Back up.
Yeah. It's in both of our best interests.
But I guess there should generally be. So here's what I would. If those types of things usually come after there's some attempt at diplomacy.
Which types?
So, for example, if we talked about civil rights movement and how it kind of like alluded to the fact that it kind of started off as peaceful, more or less, at least on the part of the protesters, and then it kind of morphed into something much more radical and violent and criminal, right? Why was that, right? And so I was just listening to this podcast, and the guy was going through it, and he was saying like, the original protest movement was mostly older, church-going, Southern, African Americans, and the younger generation watched what was happening, being led by their elders, and they watched them get the shit kicked out of them, and they watched them fail, and it wasn't yielding results.
Yeah.
And so then they became more rad. They were like, I'm tired of watching my grandmother, my uncle, or whatever, my dad get disrespected, right? And this isn't working. Right? We're not getting the reforms that we want. So we're gonna take it to the next level. We're gonna get militant. Now we're gonna try to get what we think we deserve.
Wasn't that a lot of like my understanding of like the Black Panther formation was in response to police brutality, and they started coalescing and arming themselves
Yes.
and following police
Yes.
officers to make sure that
Yeah.
they were acting.
Total, but and my understanding was that in the beginning, at least, they were certainly an armed presence because you were allowed to have guns in California at that point.
But then Reagan started locking down the guns.
Well, the story, and I was just looking at this. The story is that an Oakland either council member or an Oakland politician was so mad about this that he had proposed a law to ban the carry of weapons in public. I don't know the specifics of it, but it was essentially like it would stop the Panthers from carrying weapons.
Yeah.
And so they went up to Sacramento on the day that bill was being debated or was going to be signed into law. They went up fully armed and walked into Bobby Steele walked into the Capitol building and got into the chamber. Yeah. But you were allowed. Like guns were allowed and anybody could walk in there. They did not break the law. Yeah. They went in there to protest, and of course they were loud and disruptive, and they kicked them out because they were loud and disruptive. But they didn't like point their guns at anybody, or they weren't breaking the law. They actually, at one point, they disarmed them, and I think they even arrested a few of them, and then they had to give the guns back and release them because they hadn't broken any laws. Yeah. And then they signed the law, and it was like that was it. You couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. So, and I can't say with certainty that they had never been violent previous to that. Like I don't know what that violence. It could have been they saw some police brutality and were violent, or they were just violent because they were violent. I don't know the story, but I know that part of the story. My point is that if there has to be like a rational justification
for violence.
For if you're going to be a revolutionary, right? If you're going to purport to be acting under like I'm acting under my this idea of mutual self-defense because the government is so tyrannical, then you just don't like, hey, I don't like how much taxes you charge me, I'm gonna go and invade the Capitol building. Yeah. Right? There's a system, right? Like, okay, I can go to court, or I can go to the agency, or I can go to whatever it is, and I can sue them, or I can ask for whatever, you negotiate legally. Yes. Right? So there's
go through the process.
You don't just just go up to the governor and slap him in the face because, you didn't like the law that you just signed. Yeah. Right? There should be a
due process.
Kind of a ramping up. And the thing is too is that what really is frustrating from my perspective is that the whole thing that happened yesterday it's not, look, if I would understand, I would kind of be able to wrap my head around it a little bit easier if all the courts had just rejected this stuff out of hand. Like they had just been like, no, it's too late, we can't even look at this stuff. We already had the election, or the election's too close, we're not even gonna look at this, right? And it was just a bunch of Democratic, crap judges, because there are some crap judges out there, for sure. There's a lot of crappy judges who are on the take or whatever. I don't know, a lot, but a few. If you can point to that, right, then I think okay, yeah, that's a problem. That's a legit problem. But when you have case after case in every state, at the state level, the federal level, the state trial court, the appellate court, each state Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, these are not liberal, left-wing, socialist courts. These are deeply conservative. When you have the governor of Georgia, right, and the Secretary of State of Georgia, and these places in Arizona. Pennsylvania is, I think, currently controlled by the Democrats, but they're pretty conservative Democrats. I'm from Pennsylvania. When you get into the cities, they get a little bit more liberal, but it's still a pretty conservative state. Michigan, these are not So my point is just that after all of it's fine to say hey, look, we've heard there's this fraud. But after all the courts and all the public officials and all the companies, they all are no, and you had a fair hearing, so and you don't have anything else other than no, you're on the take, you're part of the conspiracy, then that is just dumb. That's that's just making shit up so that you can go and be violent.
Well, were they violent?
Yeah, some people died. There were pipe bombs. People were
pipe bombs. That's
crazy.
Man.
There was a police officer died. One of the protesters died.
I just saw a picture of the guy with the horns.
Yeah, that's what So of course the internet is going to make it go to the lowest common denominator, right? That guy is famous. Out of this whole thing, he's going to have a whole show. I'm sure his YouTube channel just went through the roof. That's going to be the big upshot. Is
Hashtag blessed.
Viking dude, you know, is going to
No,
American Viking or
We
whatever.
already had Techno Viking, so we're gonna need.
I would love to see. I think Techno Viking would beat that dude's ass because Techno Viking I was scared of him through the TV.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I can. This is the difference between anybody can sit there, anybody can say the system is biased and this and that and the other, and then just march off and start shooting people. Is that what you want? Right? Based on that's just craziness.
Like
That's just crazy. I mean, I don't care who it
It
is.
is crazy because like, what if you storm the Capitol building? What do you? I still don't get like what you do because it's not like you're gonna hold it and start running things.
You know, this is the thing. They were some of them at least had been saying that they wanted to
Either Trump and Trump's lawyer Lynn Wood were talking about like attacking Mike Pence because Pence wouldn't go along and like do what Trump wanted him to do, which he didn't have any authority to do anyway.
Yeah.
So they were like, and then they were all against like they wanted to. Of course, these are not like well organized people, right? This is a mob, but they wanted to get into the chamber and like, who knows what.
Well, like, but yeah, like.
I mean, but they were like busting down the doors. I mean, you saw me in the pictures. You see it on like and the thing that I heard was that the Capitol Police were pretty much worthless.
Yeah.
The only reason that it stopped, is because Pence had a Secret Service detail with him because he's the vice president.
Yeah.
Pelosi had one for her,
Mm-hmm.
and Kamala had one for her.
Yeah.
So it was because of the Secret Service.
Yeah.
And then what they did is they called. I mean, first of all, they're badasses,
Yeah.
right? And they're not letting you get you. They're sworn to protect, and they'll kill anybody that gets close. Whereas the Capitol Police are like,
Capitol Police.
I'm close to my pension, man. You know, I just want to retire peacefully.
Yeah.
But they were the ones who you see the plainclothes people, you know, with the barricading the door with the guns drawn, and then of course then they put out the call saying like, we need all federal units to come in.
Yeah.
That's the only reason there was a response at all, you know, as quick as it was.
Yeah.
And even then it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I totally understand when people say, because things do happen, right? There are instances of people like government acting badly.
Yeah.
All the time. Yes, of course. It happens all the time. Usually it's just money and sex. That's usually the level of.
I was watching MK Ultra videos last night.
Uh-huh.
Well,
okay, yeah. I mean, we go back to the 60s and you get some crazy stuff. But that's Edgar Hoover, you know, that's like, you know, bad shit. But, barring that, you know, that's a good example. Like, there's a good examples of how, like, the FBI infiltrated, you know, relatively peaceful protest groups and then, like, or helped them turn on each other and, like, and they assassinated the Black Panthers. They just, like, went on the hunt. Not that those guys probably didn't deserve it, I guess, but, I mean, they did some bad stuff, too. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I don't know.
I'm not taking a position on that, but I don't know enough about it.
My only exposure to.
I think here's the thing: if you go off and you start killing cops,
don't do that.
you're probably going to wind up. The cops are going to come and try to kill you, right? Like that's a equal and opposite reaction. But
the only thing I know about Black Panthers is from that part in the movie Forrest Gump where Johnny is hanging out with them, and then Forrest goes in and he's in like full military garb, and it's just super tense and awkward. and he's not really sure why, but he knows that everyone's.
And Jenny is in there with him or something. Is that why he's there?
And like she's just chilling with like a bunch of beatniks and Black Panther guys, and it's just
Well, I mean, things escalated, right? And people like the things with the Panthers, they were loose. Like the ones in the East Coast were not necessarily buddy with the ones on the West Coast.
I didn't know there were any East Coast Panthers.
Oh yeah, New York City, and then they turned it to the BLA, and they were like totally out of control. They did some really bad stuff. Black Liberation Army. They were bad. They were really bad. But Eldridge Cleaver, he was really bad. Anyway, I won't go off on that tangent.
Can I go off on another tangent?
Sure, please.
Because we were talking about like news and stuff yesterday,
Yes.
where people get their information. And I was like watching this MK Ultra video on how I think CIA was dosing civilians with LSD during the 60s or something, and
I was thinking COINTELPRO. That's the one I was thinking of. That's what I was referring to.
Which one was that?
That was the infiltration of all these left-wing organizations.
And then MK Ultra was like the mind control experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really funny because it was like this old program from like the 80s or something, because they were still talking about like Russians and Soviets. and like what they were going to do with LSD maybe. But so they were like interviewing people, and they were like talking about how the government was like trying to control their minds and get people to like think things that they weren't going to think and do things that they weren't going to do. And then like every 15 minutes there'd be like these commercials for like buying drain cleaner and like all these old advertisements that like I haven't been exposed to commercials in so long.
Yeah.
But like it was like oh yeah, commercials like an actual.
Brought to you by Calgon, or you know.
Yeah, and it's neat, but it was like the juxtaposition between like watching a thing about mind control and then like mind control like happening where like this person or this thing is trying to get you to purchase this product.
Yeah.
And like you didn't have this idea before you started watching this program.
No.
And
You
so,
know
like,
how happy you'd be if you just bought, you know, a TV dinner.
But like there's like all this concern about these people over here like controlling your mind in a way that like you might not be aware of, and then like over here it's like it's just another sort of method, and it's just interesting, and it's got me. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about like the media that I consume. So
You don't need the LSD. I think what that whole example proves is that you don't really need LSD to control the minds of people.
It's true.
You just need Kim Kardashian to tell them to buy stuff, and they will.
Well, or I was telling you about this today. Like one of the kids I'm working with, really loves mobile games.
Yeah.
And it's just like he is addicted to those mobile games, and it's just like.
Tell them we got to get the Ender's Game going on.
Yeah.
These kids, we have to get the drones like wired up to like all these. We need drone wars, right?
Yeah.
Something like that the kids can play, but they're really wired up to real drones.
That'd be cool. But yeah, he's like super into these games, and it's like all he thinks about, all he talks about, and he like tells you that he.
How old is he? Does he have his own cell phone?
I think he uses his mom's tablet.
Oh, okay.
But he's like, man, like I wish my mom would let me buy this like package for this game, and like all these like small microtransactions.
Yes.
It's like, oh, that reminds me of me as a kid, just.
We didn't have microtransactions when I was.
No, well, for me as a kid, it was like you go to the mall and you walk past the arcade machine.
Yes.
The arcade place.
Yes.
It's like lights, colors, like potential fun, and mom give me money.
Yeah. You get a couple quarters.
Yeah, and it's like the whole thing is addicting to an 8-year-old. You go in there and like your whole brain turns on. And it's like, oh. You go play games for hours.
Places were like dirty and smelly.
But it was like for a kid.
I mean, think about this like in the age of COVID. You go in there and like these machines, everyone's touched the knobs, and no one ever cleaned that stuff. There's never any.
It was always at a bowling alley, so you already know that your hands are gross anyway. So
sticking them in some like bowling ball holes. Man,
bowling holes.
How did we get onto that from the Capitol storming? I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. It's.
I had a good idea for a goal. Talking about like, and I know it's weird because we have a YouTube channel, but like limiting social media for like a week.
Oh yeah.
Like I think that's.
I've already done that.
That would be a good goal.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm gonna try and do.
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll definitely find yourself being a lot happier if you just cut yourself off from the world.
Like I wonder, like the kid Kyle with the guns. Do you think he would have shown up at that place if he didn't have social media?
No, probably not. Probably not.
Like, there was an idea he had in his head that didn't need to be.
This is what I was saying to you. We have to figure out whether there needs to be some sort of analysis of whether the internet is like a social good or not.
Well,
I don't know. The thing is, I think
like TV.
Facebook is really good from a business perspective. Like if you want to advertise, Facebook is like the best.
Well, but are we a country of businesses or a country of people?
We are a country of laws. We're a country of businesses. That's what we are. I mean, yes. I don't know what country you've been living in, but this one that I live in is a country of businesses and businessmen.
Then by all means,
women.
like we should all endlessly use Facebook.
No, but my point was that I was going to come to was that while it is wonderful, it's a wonderful tool and platform for legitimate activity that is socially beneficial and economically beneficial. It really does too good of a job of like letting the crazies communicate.
Yeah.
And not just Facebook anymore. I mean, now there's other platforms that have emerged.
Yeah, well, in the past, if you were communicating with someone, even like over the phone, you could tell if they were drunk, right? They like messed up somehow. But now just anyone can post at any time, and you're not sure what this person is like or what's happening. That's what I think YouTube comments are like. Like all the YouTube comment sections,
Yeah.
they're just drunk people, just all, and like kids and drunks.
What I don't understand is like, you know, when we were talking about commercials, you know what, I grew up watching a lot of TV.
Yeah.
And at some point, you know, like at some point you kind of wake up to the commercials and you're like, oh, they just want me to buy crap.
Yeah.
Right? And this is crap. Like, but you wake up to it and then you just become, then it becomes invisible to you.
But as a
right?
kid, it's really cool because like you do learn stuff. Like you learn how to unclog a drain, or like
With Drano.
hedge your lawn, or
Yes.
you know, like
No. But my point is that that doesn't seem to work on the internet. Like no one is like, oh, the comment section is filled with trolls and idiots, right? Like maybe I shouldn't watch or listen to any of this garbage.
Yeah.
You know, it just seems like you get sucked down that rabbit hole.
Well, some people really like that adrenaline response you get from anger. Like when you see
Yeah.
someone like say something
Yeah.
dumb, you get really that unjustified,
Yes.
like
That's so
contemptuous.
Yes.
Like, oh, I gotta say something.
Yeah.
And, like people really like that because you get that like
Yeah,
spike.
you get the yeah. I know. I mean, I suffer from that. I definitely suffer from that indignity. But you know, I'm getting better now. I'm getting better of realizing what is happening,
Yeah.
right? And then also realizing like, you know, you can't. There's no point in arguing with people. There's zero point in arguing
Yeah.
because it really just block, you know, because if
It's not like if you said something stupid that would really offend me, I would say, well, you're my friend, right? I'm not gonna like, I would say something to you. But if it's just some rando profile picture and a stream of gibberish
Yeah.
coming, you know, across on the page, like, who are you who are you arguing with?
There are some like, you know, online communities that I participate in that, you know, I'll comment, or if I like see something that like really irks me, that, you know, I'll do stuff. Like there's a jiu-jitsu internet communities that
If
are
they
fun.
talk about self-defense, that's it. You're on comment. Self-defense is bullshit.
No, but really, like, if someone makes a comment like that, I will likely respond. Like,
Yeah.
if someone's like, Americanas are the best technique, the best
We're
submission
eat
ever.
shit, man.
If you-
Americana, because we're from America.
Yeah, like,
That's
yeah.
it. You're all over it.
You know, I'm gonna tell you something about how I feel about that, you know? And it's not, like, what I'm saying isn't, like, the truth.
Yeah.
It's just, I have
I think
this urge.
the world would be an infinitely better place if we all just stopped using Facebook.
Probably.
I think it would be.
But I really like some people, like,
Some people are cool. That's true. But you know what? You never really. You know what you do with them? You laugh at their memes, and you like
but,
their
like,
stories.
some of
or
the best
whatever.
people that I follow, like, they don't post memes, like, they post their thoughts and like
Yeah.
their experiences. And that's
Yes.
like really nice to have an
Sure.
exposure to. And when I know
That's
these
like
people,
1% of.
that's the thing. That should be more of a
It should be,
percent.
but
Like,
I mean, I think my theory was that they should have a Facebook politics section, right?
It's just
And
you and all your friends.
if you want to go and engage in that, like it's a whole different area that you have to sign a waiver and like, you know,
That
I don't know,
sounds
take
like-
some insurance out or something, but like, you know, register with the government. I don't know what, but that should be like a whole separate area for Facebook.
No, we should do Tinder for politics, right? If you're blue, it'll match you with a red person.
There you go. And you
And
guys
then
can argue.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
know,
you want. Like,
you argue or you have sex, whatever you're into.
Yeah, whatever
Maybe
you're
both.
I don't know anything about that, but
Yeah, you know, people like to argue.
the other thing that's a real problem is that so I used to have this friend in college who was a really athletic dude, really athletic guy, cool guy, very smart, and he would never watch sports. We're at Penn State, right? It's a huge sports school, but he would never go to a game.
Yeah.
He would never watch any sports on the like we all watched ESPN, like that was like the heyday of ESPN.
I like this guy.
And he would never. His name was Mark. He would never watch any sports.
Wait, like, would he not watch sports, or if he was like in the room hanging out and you guys watch sports, he'd be like, I don't watch sports. And
No. He was not that guy. He was like he just wouldn't watch. Like he would
Yeah.
leave and go do something. You know, like if the TV went on, like we'd be like, oh, we're gonna watch the game. You know, we're gonna go to the game, or we're gonna do it. He would not come.
Yeah.
And you know, of course, we all asked him like why,
Yeah.
and he's like, it's pointless to watch somebody else playing the game.
I like this guy.
He's like, it's stupid. It's literally stupid. Like, why you're wasting your life watching somebody else do something that has no bearing on you whatsoever. You know, like it's like what it's and you know, at the time I thought like, this guy is an asshole. What a loser. No, that's not true. I was just like, I
I have respect for him, and I, you know, like fast forward 25 years, and you know, I find myself on the couch watching some NFL game,
Yeah.
and my wife made some comment about like how it must be nice to just like sit down for 4 hours and watch a football game, because that's the assumption that you can do, right? Like, oh, if the game's on, I'm gonna watch the game, and a lot of people do that. And I just thought about it. I was like, yeah, I am sitting here for 4 hours. She's basically watching the kids.
Yeah.
Why am I watching this sport?
Ooh.
Do I really even care about this game?
I know why.
No. And then I never watched another sports game ever in my life.
Yeah. Well, the thing was.
And I spent a lot more time. My wife's a lot more happy.
That's the thing. I had a very similar experience where, like, when I was in college, like, we would group up after jiu-jitsu and, like, you know, hang out together and spend time and, like, watch, like, shows or, like, play video games.
Yeah.
Right? And for a while, I thought I really, really liked playing video games. And then I left college and I would play video games. And then it took, like, 2 or 3 years before I realized that I didn't like video games. I liked hanging out with people.
No, there you go.
Like, I just wanted to be with the group.
Yeah, I was the opposite. I was playing video games with people, and I thought I liked to hang out with people. But then I just found out that I really like to play video games
Well,
by
what about the
myself.
sports things? Like, was it not like?
Well, video games are basically just an extension of sports too.
But
Like that's not.
But when you were watching sports, like in college, was it because you liked sports, or was it because you wanted to spend time with people, or?
I mean, I like sports a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I like watching Magic Johnson. I like watching basketball.
But then why did you stop later on?
Well, I stopped playing basketball because I started doing jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right? And you know, I used to play a lot. I wasn't just like I was never the type that was like I just watched sports. Like I always did sports,
Mhm.
not at a very high level, but I always played pickup basketball. Like I played a lot of basketball. And then after college, you know, I started doing jiu-jitsu. So then I started doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, and then I think that's part of like what. You know, part of the thing with sports is that it just lets you turn your brain off.
Yeah.
You know, you can cheer and be active and know a lot of stuff and be an expert about the roster and the statistics and the whatever, and the plays, and you can pretend like you have some expertise that actually matters, but you don't actually have to think about anything, right? It's all meaningless.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing actually that you're contributing, or that, unless you're betting money on the game,
Yeah. That's different.
right? Which again I think is also very unhealthy. But I'm kind of like, not anti-gambling, but I just don't think you should get into
Be
that
careful.
habit.
Be careful.
Yeah.
But it's you know it's kind of one of those things where you wonder, thinking about video games, thinking about TV, thinking about the internet. You know, like I did this thing where you know you can get the monitor, like you can get your screen time monitor,
Mhm.
and it'll tell you how much. I mean, it's shocking how much
Yeah.
you watch or I've watched, right? Especially when you get some free time. And you know the thing is that the information that you're getting on like Facebook is very low quality.
Mm.
Not always false, right? But not always true either,
Yeah.
right? So it's like memes. It's you know it's a lot of garbage. Funny garbage.
Yeah.
Funny garbage or maddening garbage.
And
But it's a waste of time. It's a total waste of time.
But it's also it's tricky because like I used to have this thought where like you know people who like watch TV or like I was kind of stuck up as a kid, but like I missed out on a lot of
Yeah.
social interactions because I didn't understand what people were talking about. So like it's almost like it's weird because if you don't have some level of comfort and familiarity with the garbage of the internet, you're not really going to be able to have casual conversation.
No,
with
but you
people
know,
as
here's
well.
the thing. Like, I think, and not everyone will agree. Like, I get that perspective, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, you should let your kids watch TV so that they can talk about things with their friends. That otherwise, they're gonna be the weird kid in the class who doesn't watch
I mean,
TV
as that
because they're like a Puritan, right? Like, because their family is weird.
it's not fun.
I wouldn't go that far of like for like oh because my kids go watch movies and they
Yeah.
you know they're not we don't let them on the internet without any kind of supervision, but like they go on the internet and they do stuff. But having said that, I think there is real benefit in not being part of that discourse, like not being too deep in that garbage of the internet or cultural garbage.
But then like
You know, like so.
You
Yeah,
sound- you
you're
sound
gonna
like a
be. So it's
homeschool.
okay. Like, you know, I say this to my daughter. I'm like, it's okay to be different,
yeah.
right? Like, it's okay for you. Like, you're gonna have all this pressure to conform and be the same as your friends, and there's a comfort in that conformity, right? But there's never anything special about it. If you conform to the crowd, you will never stand out from the crowd.
But standing out's not always good.
That is true, but it's
Yeah.
you won't. You'll never if you get too comfortable in all that in all the mediocrity, and if not at best,
Yeah.
you know like all the popular culture, and that is like like if you know more about the Kardashians and about whatever the fashion influencers are doing, then you know about like art or actually coding, right? Like if you love video games and you learn how to code,
Sure.
that's awesome. Okay, now you were different. Like that's actual skill and that is,
Has value.
has value. You can build a career out of it. But just sitting around and playing video games is not stupid. I love video games, but it's like going to McDonald's and just eating McDonald's all the time. You're just gonna get fat.
But you can't.
You'll stay fed, and it'll be yummy, but then you're gonna die and get diabetes and have heart disease, and be fat
Yeah.
and unhealthy.
But definitely the amount of
Just like 75% of the rest of Americans.
the amount of social media that should be consumed shouldn't be zero. I feel like.
I agree. Maybe not zero, but closer to zero
Probably.
than to
There's
50%.
You're gonna get diminishing returns probably after a certain point, but I don't know. Like I was the kid when I grew up. Like I didn't have cable, so like, and that was like the equivalent of the internet, right? Like
Yeah.
if you had cable, you
Yeah,
had
HBO.
access to shows and
Yes.
like idea. Cartoon Network when you were a kid was like that's what kids talked about,
Yes.
or like
And you were just like, I had no idea what that was.
I read a lot.
Unless you went over their house.
Yeah, and like, yeah, so when I went over to their house, I would just like do nothing but watch TV. But like, yeah, like I read a lot, and I was told the same things. Like, it is good to have your individuality, but like at the same time, I wish I had better skills as a kid to like be able to integrate, or at least pretend better. So you're aware of the things, you don't fully engage with them, but you know how to use them as tools to communicate with other people. Like that's what memes should be. Like you shouldn't be sitting at home like just making memes all day, but like if you catch a meme that makes you think of another person that you care about, you should send that person that meme because that's what memes are for. But if you're just like making memes and you're a meme,
Or you could just write them a note that says, hey, I'm thinking about you.
But that's the thing, like there are different ways to communicate, and like memes are a really good way. Like it's a good way to communicate.
It's
not
a good
just,
way to communicate with people
a
that you
feeling.
don't actually know.
But with memes,
Or that you don't actually interact with.
but the memes themselves communicate like more than just like an idea. It's like you can communicate a whole situation,
Yes.
like an emotion along with the idea that goes with it, and that's like a much more powerful, more
Or you could actually meet in person with somebody and interact. I mean, that's even a
Sure.
higher quality
Like,
situation.
when's the last time you met a person who could tell a joke? Like, who in the middle of, like, you just hang out with them, they would start telling a story.
Kevin,
and then,
you are like the only person I interact with. So unless you start telling me jokes,
But it's-
I don't know anybody who tells me jokes. My
like
kids tell me jokes.
like, I feel like it's a rare art form. You go to.
Well, it's one of those things
you go
that
to a
used to be
stand-up class.
valued, like being able to have a conversation
Yeah.
in a group of people that
Like
you didn't know.
To have a funny guy in your group, that guy used to have value, but now it's like,
Well, he's the meme lord now
Yeah.
on Facebook,
Yeah.
right? That's that guy.
and he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars posting memes on.
I think look, I think there is real value, and I wish, I don't think, if I was 16-year-old me, if you had said that to me, I don't know that it would have resonated. But like stepping out, like I was definitely not the most popular kid in school, right? Like I was kind of like anonymous. So I definitely, you want to be part of the
Yes.
in crowd, like you want to be cool.
Connected.
But I never felt. Looking back, I actually see the merit of not being part of all that, because those people they all wound up being very mediocre. All the coolest kids were like, why were they cool? Because the parents were like rich, or there maybe were one or two like legit cool kids that were actually pretty interesting kids, but they were not really part of those groups.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They had something special about them that made them cool. And usually, what is it? Why? They're a little different.
Yeah.
They're a little funnier. They're a good athlete. They're like, I remember there was this one girl, Victoria. I'll say her name because she's a real person. And she was like this strangest girl in high school.
Yeah.
She would come into these like crazy high fashion outfits, like really like sophisticated stuff. Like she was 16 years old, and she was actually like a real concert pianist, right? Like she would go and play at like real places. She was like really super talented.
Uh-huh.
but she was like from another planet, because we were all like sitting there talking about Pac-Man and like, you know, the raisin, what were the raisins, the singing raisins?
Oh yeah.
The grapevine, I heard through the grapevine raisins, like it was still, we're talking about the Lakers and stuff, like stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But like,
And there's this insane girl in her own world
who's like ultra uber talented, who probably went on and accomplished great things in her life. You know, like more. If I don't know if you can have more people like that. There's always going to be that distribution, but you know, I don't think that like being fluent in cultural garbage.
But like being socially isolated isn't.
No, I'm not talking about socially isolation either.
But like that's kind of what it entails. If everyone communicates via.
Yeah, but if your social interaction is like the internet, like that's the problem.
That's
what I'm saying. Like you gotta cut back on the. All right, I gotta go home.
Someone come talk to us.
Enough.
Help.
As we stream on.
Yeah, right?
See if I do that. Oh, look at that. I'm getting good at this. Whoa. Bye, guys.
A rocking chair. And
Wait.
a stick.